Hello, gamers, and thank you for tuning into another episode of the Cartridge Club. If you're new to the Cartridge Club, I'll quickly explain who we are. The Cartridge Club is a community of gamers, collectors, content creators, and gaming enthusiasts of all generations. The show that you're listening to is effectively a monthly book club for gamers. We pick a game, invite everyone in the club to play along, and then select a couple community members to come on the show and discuss the game. My name is Ryan, aka ItsRocketSauce, and I'm one of the hosts for the show. Without any further ado, let me introduce to you the panel for this month. Today we have Chris.
Hello.
And we have Joe.
Hey guys, nice to see you.
Thanks for being here, guys. And now I'm going to hand it over to my co-host, MustyHobbit, and he'll let us know which game we are playing for this month. Musty, take it away.
Thank you, Ryan, and thank you all for joining us for another episode of the Cartridge Club. And as is tradition with October, the club likes to play a spooky game. And in previous years, we played things such as Super Castlevania 4, Resident Evil 4, and Super Ghouls and Ghosts. But this year, we decided to go with something a little more in the survival horror angle, and that is the survival horror classic, Resident Evil 2. As we're very excited to hit this just in time for the upcoming remake. So for some of us, this is a first time. For others, this is a game that they have played quite a many time. So let's get right into it, and let's hit that with the breakdown. So Joe, we're going to go ahead and start with you then. Why don't you talk about your first impressions of Resident Evil 2? The critically acclaimed Resident Evil 2, or Biohazard 2 in Japan, was released in January of 1998 and is the sequel in the long-running survival horror franchise. Resident Evil 2 sees you take control of two protagonists, Leon S. Kennedy and Claire Redfield, trying to escape Raccoon City and its zombie inhabitants 2 months after the Umbrella Corporation unleashed a viral weapon on the fictional town. As Leon or Claire, you traverse and explore a number of environments, from the city streets to the local police department, the sewers, an abandoned factory, and even a secret Umbrella Corporation laboratory. Along the way, clearing your path of zombified humans and dogs and skinless, mutated bioweapons, you'll come across a variety of puzzles or missing items that will impede your progress. Solving these puzzles will only take the duo deeper into the real reason behind the outbreak. Claire and Leon's stories differ based on which lead you've chosen and who you select to control first. Expanding on the groundwork laid during its predecessor, Resident Evil 2 continued to define and further set the standard for 3D survival horror with its focus on exploration and cinematic presentation. The game's director, Hideki Kamiya, would go on to form Clover Studios and eventually Platinum Games, and continued to carry forward many of the elements present in the early Resident Evil games into more modern titles. At the core of the experience are the now infamous tank controls, where pushing up or down on the controller will move the character forward or back, and left or right turning in their respective direction. Add to this limited ammunition, restricted inventory space, and a static camera angle, and you set yourself up for some atmospheric and intense scares that no one had seen prior. Resident Evil 2 gained critical acclaim with a Metacritic rating of 89 out of 100 and was named number 35 overall in the Cartridge Club's top 100 games of all time. Its popularity inspired Capcom to pursue a 2019 remake of the game. We all have a fond recollection of our first time with this survival horror masterpiece, so let's hear from our panel about their first impressions with the game.
Okay, thanks, Musty. Well, this wasn't my first time playing it. It was my second time. First time, obviously, was when it came out originally, but it still holds a place in my heart as one of my favorite horror/survival games, probably followed by Resident Evil 4. So this one was obviously 2 years removed from the first game, and for me, it took everything from that initial release and improved on it. I didn't really find anything negative in that sense that they, aside from maybe like the tank controls were pretty much similar, but
I bet we'll get way into those tank controls. So.
Oh yeah.
I played this on a PS2 Slim. My one thing when I started playing this again for the second time is I immediately thought of, I'm envious of anyone playing this for the first time because it's such a good game. I would have loved to experienced it all over again. Being completely surprised with everything. I was actually able to remember, I'd say, half of what to do in the game. And a couple of memorable parts about it are I found the music, I think, is definitely something that stuck with me. To me, it was haunting and comforting at the same time. And bad memories, obviously, when people ask me about RE2, as you say, it's a great game, but it's super stingy on ammunition. But that's also part of the fun of playing the game as well.
Chris, let's hear your first impressions on Resident Evil 2.
It's also my second time playing the game currently, but back in the day, I wasn't really into the video game magazine scene back in the late 90s, so I only knew about new games coming out by going to like Funkoland and if I saw a commercial on TV, so I didn't really have a hype level for part 2 other than the fact that I played the first one and I really liked it. But I went to a GameStop one night or Funkoland or whatever it was, and they were playing the opening cinematic on a TV in the store, and I went, that game right now. And picked it up that night, and I only beat the Leon storyline, the first one, and I don't know if it was I got distracted by another game around the same time, but I never went and finished the Claire one. I never even started it, actually. So I always considered myself beating the game back in the day, but I did not technically do so. But starting it up here, I was playing it on my Dreamcast this time instead of the PS1. And the controls are something that take a lot of getting used to because controls have evolved a lot in the last 20 some years. And a lot of it came flooding back. I was playing through the Leon thing and I beat it, I think, in half the time I did back when I started it originally. So I was kind of surprised by that, but I still had just as much fun playing it now as I did back then.
Excellent. Well, Ryan, I know that you've declared yourself an RE2 expert-ish.
Of course, yes.
Of course.
Yeah.
Let's hear what were your sort of first impressions way back when?
So my first impression is, and my memory for this game, playing it for the first time, is I don't even remember the first game ever coming out. That's a game everyone knows me. I was a huge N64 kid. I still am a huge N64 fan. PlayStation was not on my radar, period. I wanted nothing to do with it. Resident Evil 2 was the first game that actually made me, I guess, jealous that I was not a PlayStation person. I was at my cousin's house for Christmas Eve, I want to say it was, and he was actually the cousin who got me into playing video games. So it seems like every Christmas when I went over to the house, I would always kind of learn of a new game that I didn't have. And this goes back to like Mario and Mario 2. But that year that Resident Evil 2 came out, he had it, and he's like, okay, let's go. You know, this is hot at the moment, I guess. And he's like, we're gonna play this here, and he just just turn it on, and he's like, go. And it basically, I remember he was telling me he broke up with his girlfriend at the time and was having this all, woe is me story when I just didn't care because I was playing this game and my mind was blown. I know I sound awful, but I was just kind of like well, sure, whatever. Because then I remember he got me helped guide me through into that liquor scene that blew my mind as a kid, where I just was like, what do I have to do to play this game? And then I want to say it came out the following year for the 64. And I was so happy because I could finally play this game that I was in love with, and I thought about it for a year. And I loved it so much that I played it back to back, where I memorized everything and got so good at the game that I had to unlock everything in the game. So I loved it. Joe, I know you mentioned that the music was both haunting and relaxing, and I totally understand it because that was something about it for that game. But I remember then talking with kids at school about playing that game, and everyone did you play with the lights off at night? And you're like, yeah, because then you want to get the full effect. So I don't know. It was something that I played so many times back to back that I had to master it. Yeah, so I guess I'll stop right there and let you talk about your first impressions.
Sure. So I didn't play this when it originally came out. However, I did play it prior to my most recent playthrough for one evening. And the story behind that is that I had a buddy of mine. It was the day after a pretty big kegger at my apartment. And it was just, the keg was still there. There was still probably about a third of it left. And so I was like, come over, let's work on this. And hey, I stopped by the Blockbuster and I picked up this game to play on my PS2. However, did not have a memory card. So we went for it, and I can't remember if how many times we had to restart, but we never made it to the sewers. And by the time that the sun was starting to come up, we were pretty much like I don't know if my recollection of that phase is not there, but yeah, it was extremely intense. We were doing the whole the lights were off, and we were a few drinks in, and it was a crazy intense experience. And then I just walked away from it. The fact that I didn't have a memory card basically told me there was no way I was going to no death run this on the first shot. Like, that just wasn't going to happen. And that was the extent of my experience until this month. And so this month I picked up a copy on the PS1, playing it on my PS3, so no memory card required. And I will say that my recollection of the game was pretty much I don't remember which character we picked. I remember a few moments, like the early hallway that you've walked through 3 times, and suddenly there's the windows become a thing. Like, those moments are there, but I don't. The memory of the controls or anything when I started this month was not there, and I had a hard time. The opening to this game was killing me bad. I think it took me probably 10 attempts to just get to the police department. And so I have some thoughts about being a modern gamer, or maybe I should rephrase it as a post RE4 gamer in the series, and how going back takes a lot to get used to. And I managed to work through it, and I finished the Leon storyline this time around, Leon A, and then did not get into Claire, but that's okay, because as I understand, we've got people who have sort of dabbled in each of the storylines, and we can kind of talk through a lot of that. But let's kind of hit on the story. Ryan, do you want to kind of hit? Can you kind of give a general, aside from what was already mentioned?
Sure. So this game, starts off with 2 characters, Leon S. Kennedy and Claire Redfield. Leon is a first day on the job cop for the Raccoon City Police Department. And he shows up in the town, and it's full of zombies, right? And Claire's there looking for her brother, but essentially leads to, I'm trying to think what to say here with
shenanigans.
Yeah, shenanigans. And this town is completely full of zombies, and you eventually find yourself in the police station, right? Because that's where the cutscene ends, and tells Claire to meet him there, and from there you start the story. But the thing about this game is there are 2 different ways to play through the game, and like you said, you can either start with Leon or you start with Claire. And if you beat that, it opens up the option when you save after the game that story B starts for either. So if you start the game as Leon, you will then continue the game as Claire, and then from the split up point in the game, Claire will go one way to the police station, which is a much shorter way. So if you fretted that long walk to the police station where you have to watch out for zombies back and forth, you have a much shorter path. It's kind of where I want to say it starts you off where you have to put out the fire on the top floor because there's a helicopter crash. Now, in the A story, at least from this playthrough of mine, you don't see the helicopter crash. It's just the top floor is on fire, and you have to put out the fire to get through the wall there. But in the story B playthrough, you see the helicopter crash into the wall. I'm trying to remember who shoots a rocket, I think, at the helicopter, and that's why it crashes, I believe. So I'm probably making that part wrong, but I just remember it crashes right there. And from that's the reason why.
Wasn't it the sheriff?
Is it the sheriff?
Because he said he wanted to stop anyone from coming to rescue them.
You were probably right. The chief, right? Brian Arnitz, right?
Yeah.
So yeah, and on both characters, there's different characters you run through. So with Leon, you run in with Ada, and I'm trying to think if there's any other real characters for him, because Claire seems to have.
Annette seems to be the other one, but I don't know if she crosses both paths.
She does. She does
Okay.
for both paths. And with Claire's, it's Sherry Birkins, who is the daughter of William Birkins, who is the inventor of the G virus, which is the virus that's supposed to, I guess, take the T virus to another level here for Umbrella. And
Puts eyeballs on everyone's shoulder.
mm-hmm. It makes you a little bit stronger, and eventually turns you into a giant asshole with teeth that crawls forward to you on the train in the final battle. Yeah, with story B, there's also an additional ending. So where story A ends, where everyone's like, I think everything's gonna be all right. There is another cutscene that comes right after that, and you find out that there is, the final boss is on the train. You have to take it, to kill it, and you have to escape the train, escaping Raccoon City. Yeah, so essentially, it game changes both times through. So if you think playing Leon story A and Claire story B is, if you think that's the way it's done, I guess all I'm trying to say is it's different for both times. The best way I could describe it, and this is getting towards the end here, Leon story A ends, and I don't believe you run into Ada Wong at the very end of the game. Mm-hmm. But with completing Leon story B, by this I mean completing Claire's story first, then Leon's story, you see another additional cutscene with Ada. I encourage people to play it almost both ways through. So if you like this game, do Leon. I guess Leon story A, in my opinion, is the easiest way to go through this game. And then Claire story B, but I think the better, more enjoyable way for me is to play Claire first, then Leon, because I guess I enjoy the additional Leon story more than I do the additional Claire story.
Gotcha.
And
So
I was all over the place there.
So Joe, you said you played Leon this time through, right?
Yeah, I did start off with Leon, and I'm pretty sure it was probably the same when I did it back in the day as well. For me nowadays, it's not that I don't want to do the additional stories or anything. I just don't have the time for it.
Yeah, I understand that.
Yeah.
And then Chris, did you play both, or did you just?
This time I started off as Leon, beat that, and I want to say at the moment I'm about halfway through Claire's playthrough.
Okay. Very good. Yeah, I did the Leon thing as well, and as time is limited, I saw credits, and so that's my story, and I'm sticking to it.
I didn't realize that you could actually flip it around. I didn't realize you could start as Claire and then do Leon. I always thought it was like disc 1 then disc 2.
Yeah, well, and I mean that's why I guess it is kind of interesting if you did go with Claire first, because the way that you would open up that disc case, you would almost be it doesn't acknowledge the fact, or maybe it doesn't, I just haven't realized it, but that you could go with Claire first. But
yeah,
it's interesting. Was this one of the first situations where we had one of these kind of branching, you finish the game and now see it from this other perspective? Like I'm trying to think of other examples of games that have done this, the near automata approach.
I think the first one kind of does it, but doesn't go into nearly deep enough with this.
Nearly. I like what you did there.
Because Jill has her little bit with Barry, right? In the first game. Barry, I can't remember his name.
Burton.
Was it? William
Yes.
Burton? Isn't it William Burton's?
Barry Burton.
That's right.
not Jack Burton, Barry Burton.
and Chris has his story with Rebecca, but I don't think there is because I think it's all in one disc for the first game, right?
Yeah.
So I don't think there is that much difference between them. It's just that Jill has her part with Barry, and Chris has his part with Rebecca. It's just that they just don't have as much backstory to it. In this one, there's a little bit more backstory with the different characters you run into during the game playthrough. So this is the first time I can recall it, and maybe one of the reasons why I like this game a lot, because I thought I was getting more for my buck, if you will. That there's feels like I'm playing almost a slightly different game.
Did you guys feel that this was one of the more believable in terms of stories for the Resident Evil series? You know, if it's possible in any way, but you know what I mean. I'd say, like, when I say that, it's like I compare it to, you know, maybe definitely 4 in terms of I guess I'm referencing more of like the bosses and whatnot. If
4 really jumps the
believable.
shark. 4 really jumps the shark there with some of those boss fights in there.
You know, but this one, you're in a city, you know, you're a police officer, there's stuff going down. It takes place obviously in the police station as well as underground. So it's, and the creatures and bosses you fight would be ones that you would expect to sort of see in this scenario.
A giant crocodile.
Well, I mean,
that wasn't the sewer, right?
Yeah, I mean,
it's been exposed to the G virus, so it is.
What about the giant moth?
Oh, that's right.
There's that too. Yeah, the optional boss.
James Gum would be proud.
But then, I mean, there is some. You get the weird stuff, right? You get the. I don't even. They didn't give names to a lot of these things. Like, if you wanted to look up the name for whatever that was in the septic room, that larva spitting.
What, the G larvae?
Yeah, like that guy he was just there. I can't remember.
Yeah.
There was no formal name for any of those things. I guess some of the later ones there's a little bit of more formality in the Claire playthrough, but we should just kind of talk about bosses right now. I think I don't know, like the first liquor encounter seemed like a bigger boss battle than some of the other ones to me.
Was that cutscene, right? That opening cutscene where it's
I mean that's the first unrealistic looking. Well, I say unrealistic, but it was. I mean, it looked humanoid enough, and that cutscene was well crafted. But that was more menacing than a lot of the later stuff, to me, at least. And I think part of it is because you just don't have much on you at that point. You may not even have the shotgun if you didn't know to go back into the weapons shop, and so it's a. Oh God, what do I do? I think the first time when I played through it, I tried to fight it, and that did not bode well.
Well, and then they start throwing multiple ones at you later on in the game, and you're just kind of like, eh.
Yeah.
At that point, because at that point you probably got the combat shotgun and everything.
Yeah, you start to hear the audio cues.
Yeah,
and it's like, okay, I'm all right. No worries. There's like 2 shots with that combat shotgun, and you're done.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think for me, I think the one boss battle I did not like was the alligator. Thankfully, I searched enough to know what the solution was. Not on a walkthrough. Like, I actually looked in the hallway. I was like, oh, there's a canister. It's gonna fall down here if I push this button. Okay. Well, this long hallway might be used for something. Like, I felt like that was really telegraphed.
I love it though. I think it's fun. It's like a tribute to Jaws right there too, right? Where
yeah,
the canister in its mouth, and
that's true. I could see that. I thought maybe there'd be like I'd have to do that a couple of times or something, and it was just like, nope, boom, top of the head is gone.
I didn't even do that. I just shot it and it ran through a wall.
Really?
Yeah.
Interesting. How many times did you have to shoot it?
A lot.
Okay. Yeah. It basically it was one shotgun blast and he was done.
See, now I know for next time.
Yeah, there you go. But I don't know. Did you guys have a favorite boss, or did you find any of the battles to be more epic than others?
Honestly, I remember the bosses being a lot harder back when I first played it. I remember that I had a lot of trouble back in the day fighting the final Birkin form in that room where the elevator's counting down.
Gotcha.
But this time I basically took out the submachine gun and just unloaded it and it was dead. So I don't know. This one I felt they were kind of a cakewalk. Other than the alligator. The alligator is one that gave me trouble.
Yeah, I got nervous on that last form because I didn't have enough healing with me. Like I only had 2 things, and with the first time he grabbed and tossed me, I then looked at my inventory and it was like danger. I was like, uh-oh. He does that again. I'm toast. And thankfully, like subsequent times when he threw me like that, it didn't do the same amount of damage for some reason. But yeah,
I think with the bosses in this game, I was less impressed with them and more favorited the actual regular enemies that you fought throughout.
Yeah.
Okay. Let's talk about those.
Zombies.
Zombos. Yeah. Did you have a did you have a favorite among just the random mobs, or they're not random? They're all pretty well placed, I think, but like because you get a good enough variety.
I like the dogs. They especially when they were out of camera shot and you hear their nails clicking on the ground as they're just pacing back and forth. Like that scene when you first come across them, which is in the dog kennel section, right? And you're walking down the hallway and you see them. I believe there's 2 in separate kennels. And then you sort of know what's going to happen, probably if you've never played the game before, where you go to the end of the hallway, you grab something, and all of a sudden they bust out of their cages and start coming at you. But before you even see them, you hear like the clicking on the ground. And then what's also satisfying is when you're shooting or killing them, to make that whimpering noise. So it's sort of like it's a nice feeling, like you're punishing them really good. Only because they're undead, not because you shouldn't do that to real dogs.
I'm gonna jump in and say I love the lickers in the game. I mean, that still, it goes back to probably that first time playing it at my cousin Dustin's house. But I know like the one lick can kill you, but it's just, I think it's a great design for a character. That's the one that stands out to me the most in this game. It's kind of like, if you ever play any of the other ones, it's like the newer version of the Hunter. The Hunter was kind of like a big giant green frog gorilla, with meaty hands that could kill you when hit. But I think the licker is a much better look. And I remember seeing him for that first time. You see him crawl past the window before even that cutscene happens.
Yeah,
it's like that stuff like that just like stands out to me. Why I really enjoy that character the most. It's kind of like a spider human thing. I don't know.
And he can cling to walls and ceilings, and yeah. I think I'm with you there. It was interesting. I was doing a little bit of reading up on this, and their first plan for this game was to do something that had a little bit more over the top enemies, like those like large gorilla style zombies, or like spider human hybrids and stuff like that. So I'm kind of glad they didn't go off the rails as much as they could have. And I will say I didn't waste my time with the spiders at all. Like I think I killed one because I couldn't get around it, but I didn't find, as much as I was like fearing the sewers because that was that point where I had never seen before, there wasn't a whole lot in the sewers that was actually terrifying to me. It was just like, oh, yep, there's a big spider. Okay, just push up and go this way a little bit and back this way a little bit, and you just sort of skirt around them, and not a big deal. And then by the time they introduce like the plant bosses, you've already gotten the flamethrower, and it's like,
those are my least favorite characters in the game. I hate the walking plant things.
I think it would have been nice to not give you the silver bullet for those before you, like, you should at least meet them or at least see them behind glass or something before you have the answer. Let me just say it that way. Because that was it made them very simple, I think.
I like what you said, Chris. You said Triffids.
Yeah, that's the first thing that came to mind.
Day of the Triffids, one of my I believe I saw that as a mini series on TV back in the day when I was a kid.
Yeah, that was the first thing that came to mind when I saw one of those things coming down the hall. But I want to say my favorite enemy or standard enemy was probably those skinless, naked zombies toward the end of the game, like right when the alarm is about to go off to say that the self-destruct. I don't know why, but that creeped me out more than anything else. I don't know why. Because I remember the first time I saw one when I was running down the hall after the alarm went off, I went like, damn.
Yeah, and they kind of first appear in the lab, right? Like, and maybe it's just the benefit of the tank control camera angles too. Right? I think you just walk in a room and all of a sudden, bam, they're just like right there when you walk in that one room, where you have to get the cure if you're. I think that's Lance playthrough. You have to maybe get the cure for Sherry or something on that one. So. Yeah,
because you only get the G virus and then you throw it away as Leon.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, I remember the alarm went off. I walked out to go see, because I just laid Ada down on that bunk to let her rest. And I went back to get her when the alarm went off, and they were like all crowded around that door to that room she was in. I went, whoa! I don't know why. It just that made me jump. It creeped me out a little bit.
Those reminded me of, for those who have played Resident Evil 4, the regenerators, like the ones that those like tall kind of like Slender Man looking kind of guys, but like with the big creepy toothy grins. Like that's kind of what I think they might have been. That might have been the early stage for those guys.
The prototype.
Yeah, but yeah, I can totally see how it's like, here's something different, and it's at a moment where all of a sudden you have a klaxon going off in the background, and
a little panicked.
Oh yeah, just a little bit. And that's good. I think we've kind of hit all the primary enemies. I'm curious how you guys felt with your recent playthrough graphically, outside of the cutscenes. I think we've all kind of addressed that the cutscenes were really well done, especially considering that it's a 20-year-old game at this point. But graphically, how did you guys feel with the static angles and the kind of pre-rendered backgrounds? Joe, let's start with you on the graphics.
Well, like I said, it had been a while since I'd played it, and I honestly can't remember the last time I played a PS1 game. But immediately when I put it in, I either blocked out mentally or just completely forgotten how boxy the graphics were character-wise. It was good and bad. It brought back nostalgia, but at the same time, after playing, PS4 game the day before, and you go back to doing this, it's just like, oh god, this is horrible. But so that was it for character graphics, I guess. Can we throw voice acting into this category too?
If you want, yeah, sure.
Yeah, again, it's part of the charm, and in terms of the cheesiness of the voice acting, my biggest gripe about it, aside from the actual talking, was the fact that there's the lack of facial movements. Not in the in gameplay, I should say, not cutscene wise. So it'd be like, me talking to you now without my face move or my lips moving. It just sort of takes you out of it. It makes you realize like, this part didn't really hold up after all the years. Great in-game atmosphere for me. I thought those pre-rendered backgrounds, I thought were one of the highlights of the game. Just something about them still holds up. Just really, I think that was something special for the time period that the game came out in. It hadn't really been done up to that point. So I enjoyed that part. The rooms and the hallways all had great detail to them, like either with the windows boarded up, or there'd be glass strewn on the floor, and then as you're walking over it, you hear the glass crinkle, or the tables and chairs would be overturned. The rooms were set up in a way where you could sort of imagine what would have happened prior to you showing up, like in the police station where, panic and chaos and people are just trying to board up windows and block doors with pieces of furniture or whatever, and that's why you can't get through it at that point, so you have to sort of work your way around it, and then you see what's actually the cause of it. The blood in the game I thought was excellent. There was nice blood splatter when you were shooting zombies and whatnot. There'd be nice blood pooling on the floor, and it would stay there. Really like that.
That's when you know the zombies are dead.
Yep.
Yeah.
And just basically, I thought they did an excellent job to the attention to detail. And one thing that really stuck with me when I played it this time was later on in the game when Chris gets shot in the shoulder. I guess it's when he goes underground, and he has to get his shoulder all bandaged up, and that changes the look of his uniform. I don't remember that actually happening in game before to any other type of game where a character got injured. So I thought just that kind of attention to detail was all throughout the game. But yeah, that's pretty much it for me.
Yeah, for sure. Chris, let's shift to you on kind of how things hold up. Whether you want to hit graphics or we can kind of hit whatever you want to address here.
So yeah, I was playing it through the VGA cable on my Dreamcast. So I'm assuming that if I were to be playing through the regular cable setup, it would have been okay looking. But I guess because of the VGA, the graphics are actually really clean and crisp. I was surprised that they looked as detailed as they did on my HD TV. But yeah, the graphics did not age very well because I now that I'm playing through the game as Claire, and she's sleeveless, you could see like her forearm does not connect to her upper arm. It's just like a square that kind of overlaps, and it looks really, really strange to me. And the character graphics are okay. I guess I don't know what it's like playing it through on the PS1. I haven't played the PS1 since back in the day, but did the items you can pick up really, really, really stand out from the backgrounds to anyone else?
I think some of them did.
Because like
aside from the ones where they were like, here's a glowing item.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm just talking like the paperwork and stuff. I mean, like, because I'm playing it through the VGA, it's clear that thing is there for you to pick up. I mean, it's a completely different like shade compared to everything else in the background. That kind of, I thought it was not as fun because I guess I'm supposed to pick that thing up now, you know.
It's like watching an old cartoon and you can see where the movement's going to come from.
Yeah,
you can see where the cell. Here's the background cell. Yeah,
I was a little disappointed in that. But when it comes to like the pre-rendered backgrounds, I mean, Joe is saying that like the detail in them are really great. I love the fact that in a couple of the offices that you go through, you can see there's like bullet holes in the walls and the doors where you can see there's a firefight that happened, or there's like bullet casings on the ground and all that kind of stuff. I thought that was really cool. And there's pools of blood where you assume people were killed, or maybe a zombie was killed or something. You don't know. I think the animation is pretty decent, but as good as the graphics looked through that VGA cable, it did absolutely nothing to help that voice acting. It is horrible. I wrote a couple of the quotes down, and I don't know if it's because of the way the dialogue was translated or if it's just the delivery, because when Ada is talking about her husband, she says, "By the way, I just found out John is dead. Never mind." It just I cackled like a little kid. I thought that was the funniest thing ever. I mean, if they're trying to go for that whole B movie feel for the game, they definitely got it by having the voice acting be the way it was. But yeah, the cutscenes look really, really good. They still, I mean, everyone kind of has like a bony face, like especially Leon. But the cutscenes still look pretty good. The graphics in the game, I mean, I've seen better. But for the most part, I still enjoyed everything I was looking at. I mean, it wasn't like turning my face away, going like, "What am I playing here? This looks like god awful crap." So I was pretty impressed that it holds up as well as it does.
Yeah, I think you have to look at this through a 20-year-old lens. I mean, there's a reason this game is getting a remake, right?
Yeah.
Like this game is revered, and I think we'll get to that soon enough. But
I think nostalgia also has a big part of it, because I remember really enjoying the game back in the day, so I'm willing to give it more of a pass than some other games that I might not have played back in the day and that I start playing now, and I'm like, ugh.
Yeah, I definitely could see that. Yeah, like when I fired things up. Yeah, having this static cameras works here, and it enhances the gameplay. One of the things that a couple of you guys mentioned was the blood pooling, and the first big blood pool that you deal with is the one that's under the liquor, and so suddenly then every time you see something like that, this heightened tension, right? Yeah, or look up, but it's just point. Right, like you don't get to look up. You just hope that there's not anything up there, and hopefully you don't waste shots in the process. Yeah, for me though, playing through it, yeah, it took a little getting used to coming off of playing Spider-Man. There's a bit of a discrepancy between the two games, but obviously architecture is what it is. I was also playing it through the PS3 onto an HD TV. I probably was also like you with the Dreamcast version on those cables. I probably wasn't doing myself any favors. It might have looked better had I gone traditional. Yeah. For me, some of the stuff, one of the things that kind of got to me is that whenever there was going to be a big moment, I could hear it load. Like, I could hear the drive go, like there's an audible spinning of the disc at that point. And so I was like, I walked into a room and then there was a brief break and then I heard that and I'm like, okay, something's happening. So the jump scares weren't that jump scary to me this time. When we played it back then, I mentioned earlier the scene where you're walking through a hallway and suddenly you get the burst of arms through the window and you get pulled against the wall and all of that. And I wish they would have done a little more of that. The other instance is the interrogation room, which was pretty well crafted. I think.
Is that the window that breaks, or the glass? Yeah.
Yeah. The one side.
Way. Yeah.
The one-way mirror. Yeah. And you get the liquor all of a sudden in the room with you, and you might not be ready for it. You're like, ooh, I just got this plug from this weird cards and chess based police department.
Yeah, that chief was weird.
Yeah, there's some weirdos in there. I was going to point out one thing for the voice acting. There's a little bit of an X-Men connection here. The voice actress for Claire voiced Jubilee in the animated series. The voice actor for Leon was Quicksilver, and the voice actor for Annette was Mystique. So, fun fact.
So you're talking about those jump scares, though. I forgot. One of the ones that got me the most was, normally with those transitions where you're going through the doors, there's that one where the zombies are behind the door and they jump out at you.
I don't think I came across that one.
Really? There's one door that swings open and there's two zombies standing there and you see them lunge. That was the one that got me.
Oh, the crows. The crows was another moment for me.
Yeah.
Yeah. Because the music goes crazy at that point, more so than I could, like, the music that hits at that specific moment is stronger than, I think, almost every other piece of music, except for the save room music, which I strangely love and hate at the same time.
Yeah, same here.
But yeah, I don't want to take all the things about whether or not this holds up visually. Ryan, I want to give you a chance to.
No, that save room music is fantastic. I love it. It's relaxing.
You know exactly what room you're going into.
Oh yeah.
Once you start hearing it,
you can breathe for a minute there.
Yeah.
But no, it still holds up to me. For me, now like I said, my version was the first version was the 64, and I played my original copy for this playthrough. I guess one of the benefits for me is I don't get to hear those loading cues because there's no loading with the 64 version. But no, like those jump scares are great. They got me. If you watched, I streamed this game both playthroughs on Twitch. If you're watching, I do get spooked a couple times, but I laugh about it because it's funny that a lot of times I know they're coming or I just forget about it. Like that interrogation room that you're just talking about. When I'm through that first side, I'm like, I think there's a liquor in this room. If my memory serves me right, and then I think I grab some ammunition out of the room, I leave, and then I eventually have to come back because I have the key for it, and I completely forgot that the liquor jumps through, and I was like, yeah, you got me again. I forgot all about you for that brief moment. I knew there was something in here, and then I forgot about it. Joe, I think you mentioned the hallway with the arms. I knew it was gonna come, but I didn't remember which time it's gonna come. That's just because I've been playing for 15 years. But no, the game does what it intends to do, which is be a survival horror game, right? So it was the first game, granted, like kind of set the pace for the first few games in the series with the low ammunition and the low health and everything. But you kind of learn the management and you get your jump scares. So it did what it's supposed to do. It's supposed to scare you. You know, if you burn off that ammunition right away, you're screwed. So you're gonna have to figure out a way to get past this part surviving, right? So for me, this game does hold up. I guess graphically it might not hold up in the no facial expressions, and some of the voice acting is bad. Mostly I would say Sherry Birkins, but not everyone's that bad. I kind of like the one cop who was bitten and gives you I believe he gives you the key pass for some of the doors and warns you about the police station. Like,
Oh, the guy in the office?
yeah, that guy's pretty decent, where he's like, just go, you know. So I don't know, like, there's some of it still holds up for me. I love the opening cutscene with the get down, you know, Leon. To me, there's just like one oddly cut part in there, and it's right when the zombie Leon's talking to Claire in the police car, and there's a zombie in the back seat. It's just like a little slightly odd pace with the conversation where they're talking. It's almost like Leon's not paying attention to Claire.
What's going on? I arrived in town, and the whole place went insane.
The radio's out.
But it just sounds like he just kind of cuts her off. Basically, he's not listening to her. Other than that, yeah, I think it holds up a little bit. It holds up for me, but there's definitely, you could definitely see why this game could just use a, I guess a modern day remake for what it is. For what everything it does right, you can do things to make this game better.
So let's take this moment to talk about the biggest thing. We've all kind of alluded to this, but we haven't talked about tank controls. So the quick kind of dirty on it is think about playing. If any of you have played Combat on the 2600, it is exactly that. You up takes you in whatever direction you're facing. Left turns you left. Right turns you right. If you're backing up, you press down on the controller, and it makes for some really awkward movement, especially with the lack of your ability to move the camera around. You are effectively, you may turn a corner and suddenly be pointing. Visually you're pointing in another direction, but you can continue to push straight as if you were going straight. And so I feel like they had to go that route because of the fact that you couldn't adjust the camera, but it took so long to get used to. And it makes me wonder what, like, I obviously know why we haven't gone back to it, but I mean, what do you guys think? Like, was this compared to all of the other things, was this as big of a sticking point for you as it was for me, Joe?
It took a little bit of getting used to at the start, because I sort of forgot about that, how bad they actually were. At the start of this record, you had mentioned, or you or Sauce had mentioned how much you had died at the start.
Yeah, that was me. It was at least 10 times.
I had the same issue myself, because I don't know, maybe I just been watching too many game done quick videos, but I thought I could sort of speed run through the start of the game just to get to the police station part, just because I knew, obviously remembering how much there was in terms of limited ammunition, I thought, okay, I'm going to save as much as I can. And I literally died the same amount as you, probably like somewhere between 6 to 10 times before I actually started. I just said, screw it, let's just start using ammo until we get to the police station. But the tank controls were, when you're trying to, sort of zigzag your way around enemies without shooting them, for me, that was the most difficult part. To turn 180 degrees, it would have been nice if they had done an option of, press down and press the triangle button or something like that kind of thing, where it could have gave you a quick turnaround. But it's sort of good in the sense that it adds to the urgency in certain battles. It just makes it more difficult, where otherwise the battles could have been a lot easier, maybe not as entertaining. You guys would also
you just sprint past him, do a quick 180, and just pop him a few times.
Yeah, pretty much. I also, in regards to gameplay mechanics, I didn't even mind the transitions going between the scenes, like how I know it was all part of the loading process of the PlayStation, but with the doors opening or going up and down ladders where it would do like the four steps. It just all built towards the anticipation of the game, like the scare factor, I guess, in terms of what would be coming up next. And that's my take on it anyway.
Chris, you seem to not be a fan of the tank controls too.
No, it took me about a good half an hour to start to get good, because just like you said, you were dying a lot at the beginning. When I first got put into that big crowd of zombies when you first start the game, I got annihilated because I was like, oh, I'm going to run past these guys. Nope, I run right into their path each time. So, it took a long time, and then it kind of started to come back to me because I remember I was pretty good at doing those controls back in the day. So, I don't know if it was muscle memory or whatever, but it came back. And the only time I really had problems with it again is when I was playing, as I'm playing through the Claire thing. Now there's those parts where you have to play as Sherry. And I don't know if it's that she moves differently, but I just could not control her to save my life. I kept running right into zombies that for some reason stop biting and start puking acid. But
that's because they can't reach down to her. They can't get down to her.
I figured it was them going, we don't want to see a little kid get blood shooting out of her neck when something bites it.
Yeah.
But it took a while to get used to it, but once I did, it was like second nature-ish type stuff. It wasn't too bad, but it's still extremely awkward compared to like where Resident Evil 4 ended up taking the controls for these games. But you really can't do anything about it when you've got these pre-rendered backgrounds you just have to run through.
Yeah, I mean, if they had made it so that you pointed in the direction you wanted to go, every one of those transitions between this hallway to that hallway would have had this like awkward moment where you've hit the next image and now you're running backward, right?
Yeah. Well, especially like if you're running and every 3 seconds it's changing a camera angle on you. Mm-hmm. That would be the most awkward thing ever. So I mean, I love your combat reference. That was awesome. You get points. But yeah, that now when you see the way the game is designed, that's the only way they really could have done the controls in this and have it not be this complete mess.
Yeah, and with with it being corridors too, there's very few big open areas. I'm actually surprised they didn't, at least in my playthrough, there wasn't anything that happened in the garage.
No, nothing. Just moving the SWAT van. Yeah, that was about it.
Yeah, so I don't know. There may have been a few wasted opportunities, but I think, all in all, I think we're all kind of the mindset that it works. Ryan, did you have any kind of final thoughts on tank controls, or did the N64 controller solve all the problems?
It did. It was perfect for this playthrough. Like everything on the N64 is perfect. No, I understand. It took me about, I want to say it took me, I don't mean to brag here, but I used to no death run this game, but it did take me 3 playthroughs to get through that opening scene. And I remember talking with Musty when he was not having a good time trying to get through that opening cutscene, where I say that for me, that opening part, getting to the police station on the A playthrough, is the hardest part of the whole game. If you can do that, you can beat the game. It just took me about 3 playthroughs to get used to it. After that, like I always try to tell people, do not use any ammunition if you can, for the fact that this game is sparse, very sparse with the ammo. Pull out the knife if you have to. But it took me about 3 playthroughs to get through to it, just because it's just getting used to the tank controls, essentially what it is. And eventually, like towards the end, I think I just kind of one area I think I just needed to get to, because my skills haven't quite come back yet to how well I've mastered the tank controls of this game. I needed to pull out the gun for just a little bit, but just to take out a couple of zombies to get past having like a weird angle to one of the final turns for the to the police station, if you will. I do enjoy them for this point in the game, and maybe it's just because how it works with the camera angles, but yeah, I understand for someone new, it's definitely going to take you some getting used to. For today's standards, there's not too many games use this anymore, but games that era, like Silent Hill, they used tank controls. So it became kind of like a staple for survival horror for a minute there for some 3D games that you're just gonna. It just became part of the nature of these games. So I don't mind them. It's gonna take something to get used to before you get good at it. So, but once you do, it's like getting back on a bicycle.
Yeah,
Did you guys have any complaints about the camera angles in the game? I thought they suited it perfectly, actually, in terms of the type of atmosphere.
There was a couple times where I had a hard time figuring out where I needed to go. Like I just didn't walk far enough into like the background to find out there was another path to take. But that kind of happens with all these types of, survival horror type games from back then.
For me, there were a few moments where I was using the shotgun and I was just past the transition point and the kickback from the shotgun would throw me back into the other scene. So that got a little weird because I didn't know if I hit the guy. Like I'd have to then step forward again to see if I hit the guy or not. There may not have been, actually, it may have been the Magnum at that point. Because then I popped back in and the guy's head was gone. I was like, yes, did it. Yeah. Did you guys have a go-to weapon?
I like the Magnum.
The Magnum's pretty good.
Shotgun for me. That's my favorite, but I will use the pistol more than anything.
Yeah, same with me. The shotgun it's always been one of my favorite weapons for these type of games. But the majority of the time I tried to use the pistol as much as I could just because I knew it was the weaker ammo. And I just wanted to sort of use that up as much as I could and save the good stuff for later on.
I want to say that I think you can unlock a Gatling gun with infinite ammo in this game too. And I remember just after doing that for the first time doing it, unlocking it, I was just like, all I did was just run through the game, just mowing through everybody. It's just very gratifying, just ripping through everything. It will wipe out anything in its path, and it's great. But that really just breaks the game completely. So if you just want to just mow through the game, and if you can unlock that gun, I to be honest, I don't remember how to unlock the Gatling gun.
Is that in that cabinet that requires the special key?
It might be.
I just don't know where to get the special key.
Yeah, you got to do the dark room part to get
the photography,
the
the photos.
Right? Yeah, I missed out. I missed out on doing it. I just didn't bother going back to it. So
I know I found 2 pictures, but I don't know if there was any more.
That's something I would have to reference the internet for. Look back. That's
magic.
That brings back a memory for me with this game. Is I remember getting stuck with it and having to take a bike ride to the mall to your nearest Funko-Land or GameStop and go to the strategy guide section, find out where I need to go, put the book back on the shelf, and just get out of the store.
Hey, you gonna buy that?
Nope. Got what I need here. Thank you very much. Use it as a library, but because I had to for these games back in the day, but I don't know. It was yeah. So I don't know. Sorry. Back to guns. Yeah, Gatling gun would probably be number one if I was wanting to break the game, but shotgun and pistol probably.
What about Claire gun?
The SMG?
Well, she's got a whole different set of guns. Like she's got a crossbow and a grenade launcher. And so far, I've been liking her crossbow a lot.
Yeah, I mean the crossbow will take down. Can it take out multiple zombies at once too?
No, but usually it's like a one-hit kill.
Oh,
yeah.
I thought you can go through 2 of them.
That might be the upgrade. I haven't gotten the upgrade for it yet. But when I'm taking out the lickers and what are those other ones that look like lickers but they have the big claws? I don't know what those are called. But those usually take 2 rounds and they're dead.
Did you guys find in terms of weapon mechanics more difficult to, because when I play these games, I like doing sort of the headshot kills where the head explodes, and I had a real difficult time in this one compared to other Resident Evil games in terms of blowing off heads.
Magnum seemed to do it on the first shot.
I feel like the Magnum was designed to do that. You didn't have to re-aim it at all. It was just that just went through both of those zombies' heads. Just I found it was tough to feather it just enough to get the angle on the head. So I totally see where you're coming from with that.
The shotgun was good in terms of I liked it. The zombie would get fairly close to you and you just blow him mid-torso section and
Yeah.
then his top half would continue to crawl towards you. I thought that was a nice touch they put in the game.
One thing I noticed right before we started recording was when I was playing as Claire, I was running around, I was using the handgun, and I shot a zombie at close range, and his arm fell off.
Interesting.
Yeah, I've never seen that.
Yeah, that was the weirdest thing. And then like another time I was running, and the arm was still attached to Claire as she was running away.
Ooh.
As like when they grab you and they're trying to shake you or bite you and you shake loose. Yeah, the arm came off with me or with it. It was strange. Claire's got some weird stuff going on in her playthrough.
I think if you mash the run button, not the run button, the one button you have to hold down besides, because to run you have to hold down what R. You have to hold down two buttons, right? To run.
It's square on the PS.
Yeah, it's the bottom button on the Dreamcast controller.
So I think if you mash that one button, you can then push them off you. It'll work. You can work a few times, but if you're really hurt, you're gonna still get chomped a little bit. So
Yeah.
So, Austin, you got to hold down two buttons to run on the 64?
I'm just trying to remember off the top of my head if you do.
No, that's garbage.
I will admit part of the reason I died so much in the beginning is because I didn't know there was a run button. So it's just walking to the police station.
La 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 la.
Yeah.
Taking the view on the way to the police station.
Yeah. So that's what I get for not reading the manual that was so important to my pickup of the game, right? Like silly me. But there you go. I will confess to that. Good. A lot of us have talked music, and we've all kind of alluded to maybe like one track, and that's the save room theme. Did you guys have other moments of music or specific song names, if you happen to know them, that you really enjoyed? Or Ryan, let's start with you.
Besides the save room, I want to say I don't know if it's the same exact song. That's something I'm gonna have to look into before playing this one. But I'm gonna say it's a different song here because I can always edit this in. But I want to say the hallway song, the initial one where you walk in the hallway there of the police station, and you see like I think it pans up and you see the statue, and that music. Granted, it's a safe room. The second floor might not be, but the bottom floor is safe. But that music was just, I don't know if it's ambience or how you describe it, but it's just like the piano and
the dissonant piano sounds.
Yeah, I love it. Just love that, that tone of music. It really is just, it's haunting, kind of like Joe said, but relaxing. It's a perfect way to describe it.
Yeah, I think for me the only other moment, I couldn't hum the song for you because I wanted it to end so quickly, and that was the crow, when the crows showed up. That was the big musical moment. But yeah, I don't want to experience that for any length of time ever again, because that was something. And there was some heightened music toward the end once the alarms start going off, and once you get even before you get the final countdown, the music really amps up to it almost reminds me of like some of the Perfect Dark music. I didn't write it down. I couldn't even tell you who made the music, which is unfortunate. Joe, Chris, did either of you have musical moments that stuck out?
Well, nothing really stuck out name-wise or anything specific like that. I'd probably say my biggest wish for the music, and I'm only doing this because I'm comparing it to like other horror games that I played, but one most recently being Alan Wake, where the music would, because the scenes I guess were longer, there'd be a gradual build-up to something happening. And I guess that was sort of a limitation of the PlayStation because of or at least maybe this game, where everything was more room-based, and there'd be like that loading scene where the music wouldn't have that continuous flow. So that's my biggest probably wish music-wise for this game.
To have something that just kind of sticks with it throughout.
Well, that
Yeah,
would
like a theme.
would have built up more gradually to a
Sure.
point where there would be something traumatic happening, as opposed to, you know, you're opening a door and then suddenly you're hit with being attacked and that attack music kind of thing, right?
Mm-hmm. I can see that. I think sometimes the quiet while you hear yourself walking up metal steps, like, was almost worse than worse from a
spooky level.
Yeah, that's what
Not a bad worse, but like, you know, worse for you probably.
Yeah, it messes with you.
But on that aspect though, was it, for me, I felt this way, but at a certain point in the game, did you stop having to worry about the enemies because you knew sort of that you could handle them no problem? Like I don't know what point it was in the game, but it's just like, all right, I'll go up these steps or I'll go through this door and whatever's there. It's just like, I'm not really worried. I got one health herb in my inventory, and I've got my shotgun, and I got what other weapon I have. And so it's just like, it's not, there wasn't that sense of dread, I guess. Did you guys experience that when you were playing the game as you got further into it?
It was once I upgraded all of my weapons as Leon. I think that was at the point where I was just kind of like, yeah, I'm kind of a badass right now.
Yeah, I agree with you there. Well, plus the zombies don't respawn, so
except for that once when they all break through the windows again.
Yeah, and hopefully you've decided to use the cord, because that's what it's there for.
I didn't
either. But thankfully I didn't end up going through either of those hallways.
You don't even get the option as Claire.
Oh, for the cord?
Yeah, it's just permanently severed.
Interesting. I wonder if does your Leon playthrough have any impact on it?
It does. So if you did it for Claire's story A, then the windows would be closed, I believe.
Interesting.
The one panel, because you can't. There's only one extra cord, because there's 2 rooms that it will affect, right? So I believe if you use it, let's say the first time, the hallway that you encountered a liquor on, they won't go through that door, but they will still appear then the one on the floor that eventually leads downstairs into the autopsy room. So there's that little pathway that you first encounter, I think the dog's in. So your choice. At that point though, you should have the doors unlocked, and you can just go you can go around basically. So it's up to you. The door should be unlocked. You shouldn't have to worry about going through those pathways. So unless you forgot about ammo for some secret room or something, you shouldn't have to worry about it at that point.
If you missed all the ammo drops, what happened? Like, a lot of those ammo drops were kind of conveniently like hidden, like they were behind something. If you weren't looking for it, you weren't going to find it. It's like, what happens?
Well, this was my issue though. Like what you're saying with the different things will affect other parts of the game later on, but I don't like the fact that as I started playing as Claire, you do the exact same puzzles as Claire that you did as Leon, and wouldn't you think that if Leon did it first, that the puzzle would have already been solved and you have to do it again as Claire? That kind of doesn't make any sense.
It's just, I guess they had to give you something to slow down the game a little bit, right?
Yeah, I guess. But like that scene in the library where you have to break through the floor and then arrange the bookshelves and all that, you do it all over again, but Leon broke the floor already, so the floor should have already been broken for Claire.
Well, you also need to get that red gem at the
I
top
know.
of the stairs too.
It's just weird. It kind of like didn't sit well with me.
One thing that you're mentioning, Musty, that you can actually, if you're good enough to beat this game, you can actually just beat this game without even having to kill like anything except for William Birkins. That's essentially the whole thing in this game. You can just walk past most of the bosses. Like, now the liquor might be intimidating, but you can just run through the door. You don't have to fight it. You can just there's a character that happens in Leon Story B's. He goes by the name Mr. X. Essentially, he is kind of like the prelude to Nemesis for Resident Evil 3, where he's constantly stalking you through the game.
Nemesis Light,
except he's got a trench coat.
Yep, and he's gray.
Yep. and you don't have to fight them at all. You just the only time, well, in Leon's story B, you have to fight them, and that involves the scene with Ada, the additional scene, because she drops a rocket launcher, and that's the one thing that kills him. But for the majority of the game, you can just go through it with only having to kill William Birkins, and that's it. You're just gonna have to dodge a lot of things, and it's possible. You just gonna have to master the tank controls, right? So you can essentially just beat the whole game with a pistol if you want, or even less. So that's something to consider if you just want to rush through the game. That's the only way I was able to beat the game in under 2 hours, and I believe there is a reward for that. That's how you get the S ranking in the game, is if you beat it in under 2 hours. My best playthrough was 1 hour and 56 minutes, but that's the only way you're going to achieve an S ranking, is by just passing everybody. Don't fight anyone. Just go straight through the game, get your keys, unlock your doors, go to the final boss fight, and just save your ammo if you find any ammo for the couple William Birkin fights that you're going to have. So
I thought E was the best for excellent.
No.
That's what I tell myself.
Unfortunately, it is not. It is S, which the Capcom...
Is there a double S?
Actually, I don't know if there is, but it's kind of something what Capcom's kind of kept for their games for a point in time. With Devil May Cry has their rankings for how you beat the level, and you get style points, because I think that's like style level. And I think Beautiful Joe has that in there too, for when you beat a level at the end of the game, you get a ranking, well, with S being your highest ranking you could possibly get.
I'm going to change the S ranking to stand for sauce ranking now.
There you go, the sauce ranking. I like that.
Sauce
Level.
So before we kind of get to the end with all of the our thoughts on the game, I do kind of want to throw it out there. Did anyone have anything else that either we've kind of missed on, or any one in particular that we haven't talked about yet?
Yeah, I kind of want to talk about some of the side characters in this game. I'll start off, I guess, with Ada Wong. She only is really relevant in Leon's story, for Leon's story A or B. Yeah, so she, I think, is only really relevant in Leon's story. In Claire has her, story with Sherry, but I love, I guess this is the part where, because for any time Leon is involved with Resident Evil, Ada is always going to be there. She's always going to have a part in the game, and I think if she doesn't, the fans are going to flip her up, because she is in Resident Evil 4, correct? Mm-hmm. And she is also in 6, and she has actually her own side story besides being part of Leon's story for the game too, because she's a spy for a different company, right? Is she for the government? I can't remember. She's a this is the part where people are going to probably be upset with me, because I'm just trying to remember.
CIA?
I think so, because she doesn't work for Umbrella, but she's trying to get a hold of the viruses. The G virus and the T virus, and she's trying to bring it back for whoever. And she's always got a kind of a part like that in every Resident Evil when she appears. And her and Leon kind of have this connection. Granted, it goes pretty fast from them being like her to like, I think when you assume that she dies in the game for Resident Evil 2, I think like Leon has like a Ada, like
Ada.
I can't remember if they have a kiss in this game too, but it wouldn't surprise me if I'm just not remembering it correctly, memorizing.
But she had one of the best deliveries of a line to Leon ever when he puts her on that bed. She's like, "I've only known you a short time, but I've really enjoyed being with you."
Perfect,
It's like, no.
Perfectly trained, man. She, because how old did it say? How old Leon's on this one? Is he 19 or is he 18?
I think he's like pre 20. Yeah.
Yeah. So she's playing him like like a fiddle. So
she's all cougaring him out, man.
Yeah. So I think I love that story for that, and that's for the main reason why I play Leon's story B, because I want more of the Ada story. Now with Claire, she has, besides having her additional story with Sherry, which is William Birkin's daughter, and we haven't talked about William Birkin's yet, really, so I guess we can bring him up too, who is the main boss, who is, you will fight him multiple times in this game, right? And
Twice, I think.
He keeps mutating into more spikes and a giant eye that pops out of his arm. but he is the inventor of the G virus, and essentially he consumes it because Umbrella tries to come for the G virus, and ultimately kills him while getting a sample. So he injects himself with the G virus to regenerate himself back to being alive. And I guess I should bring up this one character named Hunk in the game too. Now he is one of the members of the SWAT team. He's the only one who makes it out of alive. And there is an additional playthrough for him. It's a very short one. There's actually another character called Tofu too, which is the same exact level playthrough as Hunk in the game. But Tofu is just a giant chunk of tofu with a knife. So you'll have no guns, and essentially is you have the G virus and you're trying to escape the city. Hunk, on the other hand, has multiple weapons, so his playthrough at the end of the game is much easier. Let's see if I can.
Well, the Tofu one, I looked this up. He's got like only a knife,
That's
right?
It. Mm-hmm.
It's only a knife, and his shape, because he's a big rectangular prism. They were using him as a test for hitboxes.
Okay.
Yeah. And so.
No, but so like for how to unlock Hunk, you have to essentially beat the game with 3 or fewer saves and beat it under 3 hours, and not, I believe, use any first aid sprays to do it, basically. So, but like I said, it's an additional game. There's an additional cutscene. I think you have like 10 minutes to make it out of Resident Evil. That's the town, basically. So, and there's a lot of enemies to come for you. So you will see Hunk in the brief cutscene where I believe where you run into William Birkin's wife. Is it Annette?
Annette, yep.
Annette.
Mm-hmm.
And she describes what happened to her husband. But you will see Hunk. He's the, I believe, one of the only people who make, like I said, he makes it out of there. But I can't remember if he's the one firing the machine gun or if that's the guy who just gets killed. So
there's the one guy who you get the quick zoom in on, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then the eye logo.
Mm-hmm. And you see that in the opening load scene of the game too.
Yeah.
But then there's also one more character in Claire's playthrough called Brian Irons. He is the chief of police of Raccoon City, and now essentially most of his story is told through if you read the notes that I think are around the area that he's taking bribes from Umbrella. He's kind of a corrupt chief of police. He wants everyone. I think he doesn't want anyone to escape the city too.
Yeah, he's kind of crazy.
He kind of becomes mad. But there's like reports, I think, of like his high school or something like that, or if you read it, there's stuff that like he hurt girls back in the day, but I think he was able to cover that up back in the day. So it kind of makes sense why he's supposed to protect the mayor's daughter, but he kills her, and he says, well, she was turning into a zombie. So it's kind of like the Chief Wiggum, well, he was turning into a zombie, when he kills the captain of the basketball team moment. It's really implied that she wasn't a zombie. He just killed her because he's gone mad. There's little things like that, stuff like that. I hope they expand on more with the future game. But as for side characters, Ada's my favorite. So,
did you know that the reason why Ada doesn't show up in any of the like cinematic cutscenes is because her character model wasn't done in time? There are no cinematic cutscenes. They're all in-engine ones with her.
Makes perfect sense.
Ah. Yeah, so I'm on board with what you're requesting out of this, especially for this remake, because it sounds like they're not doing a carbon copy, reskin of the game, right? They're doing some things that aren't. They are officially remaking the game. It's not just a remaster.
Yeah, it looks like they're giving it the Final Fantasy VII treatment.
It's just not going to take them 15 years, right?
Yeah, yeah.
I heard this back in the day too, because there was a fan remake that came out a couple of years ago where they showed like that they had it in an engine, and I think they're making it in an Unreal 4 engine, and they put the footage out. It might be on YouTube. You might be able to find it too with the fan remake. Now Capcom shut it down. They said, no, you can't do this. But essentially they hired those people on. They said, no, come work for us because, hey, we are doing this, So they came and they hired those people. I want to say it was like two or four people. I can't remember. It wasn't a big group who was doing it, but it was just fans of the series. And they were working on their favorite game. And it looked awesome too. So if you can find that test footage of the fan remake of Resident Evil 2, I recommend you checking it out. But I think Capcom was planning on remaking it, and they were impressed, so they hired him on to come work for them for the game too. So
before we kind of, I guess, finish up things, do you guys have things that you would want to see? Ryan, you kind of alluded to the things that you would want to see. Chris and Joe, are there things that you want more or less of in the remake, or is there? I guess is there anything about the game that you would change if you had a chance to do it over again? Chris, let's start with you.
I think I'd like the remake to be scarier. I think back in the day when like you first played these games, like they were kind of new, I guess, the way the games are being presented. So it was kind of scary because it was uncharted territory for like the player too. But now with some of the games that are coming out now, like was it Evil Within and all that, they've kind of raised the bar. So I want it to like be really scary this time around. Okay. Maybe a little more cinematic.
I think just the camera is going to help with that a lot.
Yeah. A lot. Mm-hmm. And I would like we were talking about the music earlier. One of the things I haven't liked about the Resident Evil, I'm a huge composed music fan. I love video game scores. I love film scores. I would like there to be a theme that runs through the whole game. Just you get different variations of it as you go along. So that would be great if they can create a main theme for the game and use that throughout the whole game to kind of tie it all together. Because a lot of the music that they use in the game, it just seems just kind of backgroundy, tonal stuff that just is kind of there to create mood. Mm-hmm. But that, and I would really like a lot of can we get some character development outside of Leon is a new cop and Claire has come to find her brother, and that's pretty much all you really learn about them over the course of the game. So yeah, maybe expand the story a little bit, like the way Ryan was talking. Sure. With certain when it comes to certain characters.
Okay.
Kind of help them mix into the mythos of the series a little bit better.
Cool. And Joe, do you have anything that you would like to see in this remake, or just in general that would improve the game to you?
Well, Chris touched on it when he said expand on the story. I'd like to see some more character depth to it. And if they could create some new surprise enemies, something special with a little bit of twist that would make them memorable, and like what happened with this version of Resident Evil 2. I think that'd be a nice touch. It's like you said, it's nice that they're not just redoing it. They're completely, not completely, but they're changing it and improving on basically all aspects of the game. So yeah, improved story depth and some nice enemy surprises would be welcomed.
I think it'd be pretty cool if they took some of the bosses and added another phase. So the alligator as an example, right? Let's say you did what you took it down the path and you gave it the canister, and that didn't work. And it's just a direct kind of haha, there you go, all of you who've but have that battle do something grander to make that a little bit more epic or something. I think
even the final battle with the other Birkin,
add some other elements that make it less of a just here's me and here's this guy and then a bunch of tanks. There's all those tanks full of something. If you accidentally shot one, maybe there's other enemies that get added into the mix or something like that. Who knows?
Here's one thing I haven't heard, though. Is there going to be the same sort of different gameplay where you can choose, you don't start with Leon, you start with other characters? I haven't heard anything about that with this new version.
To be honest, I haven't heard it. I imagine if they don't, I would be upset. I know you can play as them both, but I imagine A and B both have to be A story and a B story has to be in the game. The main reason why I probably say I haven't heard this is because honestly, after the trailer announcement, I've been on block where I know I'm buying this game day one, and I don't want to see anything else. So, but if they didn't incorporate the A and B playthrough, I would be very upset. So.
Would you be opposed if they decided to mix the two storylines together, like you play for 10 minutes as Leon and play for 10 minutes as Claire, and they kind of like weave it back and forth as you
know,
go.
That I'd be fine with that. But if they were going to do an A and a B playthrough, I kind of would like what you were recommending earlier, that Leon's puzzles aren't the same as Claire's puzzles.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, let's yeah. I think we've kind of hit on just about everything for the game. So I kind of want to get your guys' overall impressions, you know, your rating on the game, maybe your final thoughts, and maybe whether you would recommend it to friends. I want to start with, let's start with Joe on this one. Yeah, Joe, what did you think about the whole thing as an experience? And yeah, would you recommend it? People check this one out sooner rather than later?
I loved it. I'm so glad that you guys decided to do this for the club, because honestly, I don't think I would have played it otherwise. I'm highly anticipating the new one that's coming out, and there's very few games that I would buy first day, mainly just for the monetary factor. But this new Resident Evil is going to be one that I pick up, and I'm glad that I was able to re-experience this first version of it again. Nothing but good memories with this game. I give it E for excellent. And do I suggest this for friends? I've always said, if you haven't played this game, you're not a real gamer. It's one of the true survival horror experience games for any system out there, and it's definitely a must to play.
Okay, Chris, let's get your lasting impressions, and would you recommend this to friends?
I would, especially if they're interested in playing the remake, because like Joe had said, I probably wouldn't have played this otherwise if you guys hadn't asked me to take place, or if you guys hadn't done this podcast about it. So like, having it fresh in my mind, it's going to be kind of cool to go and play the remake now and see where the differences are and what they've changed and everything. I definitely would recommend it to everybody. It is a classic. There was things I wish were different, but can't do anything about it now. But yeah, I think it's one of the best of the old school PS1 survival horror games that they've ever made.
Very good. Well, let me get mine, and then Ryan, I'll kick to you for your final thoughts and also a little bit of impressions from the community. It'd be hard for me to not recommend this. This game is... The people who have recommended this game to me are right. It is a very, very good game. There are going to be some subset of people that I would have a hard time getting them to play it, because you do have to unlearn some of your modern habits to play the game. We're used to stuff with checkpoints everywhere. We're used to stuff with a bevy of unlimited ammo and regenerating health, and part of what makes this game such a kind of psychological mess for me is the combination of those things, and I think they do a really good job at executing on all of that. Graphically, there are parts of it that's kind of but you know, to a lot of us who like retro and, you know, want to play retro, it's no different than playing, you know, anything else from the PS1 era. And so I think when you look through it as through the lens of this is a 20-year-old game, I think you can get past it. And you should definitely give it a try. So to anyone who's listening who hasn't had a chance to play it, you know, if you want to just go straight into the remake, do it. Part of the reason we picked it is so that people can have that chance for first impressions if they haven't yet, or to relive it before you get that new version that could become the new de facto Resident Evil 2, right? That could supplant this one as this is the way to play it, is this new modern version, maybe. I hope again that they don't over modernize it, but at the same time there's some modernization that could be done that wouldn't be unwelcome. So that's going to be kind of mine. Ryan, let me kick to you again.
So So last impression, yeah, this game holds up for me. I always kind of will recommend it. I'm always talking about, I guess, October. I always want to play spooky or spooky game themed games, and this one always, I think, probably was the launching point for me wanting to play horror games. So I hold this one to a high regard for that reason, that I think this kind of almost sets the bar, even though the first one came out first, but this one was really the one that did it for me in this the series. When I think about all the other games in the series, especially the tank-based control ones, this is the one I'd rather play over all of them. They all have their moments in the series, but this one always stands out the most. Before 4 kind of changed that for the worst, even though 4 is a good game, it kind of got away from what these early games kind of established with 2 for me. So out of all Resident Evils, this is the one I kind of recommend more than any. And with playing this, I had a great time playing it when I played them on the streams. I had a great time playing both Claire and Leon's story. I know it was a little bit slower for me on this playthrough, but it's not a long game if you know what you're doing. So I don't know. I try to recommend people, you might need a guide for that first playthrough, because there's keys, there's things that you're gonna find just accidentally hitting the A button. All of a sudden the guy will go down and, oh, here's a key or ammo. So there's stuff that might make it challenging for you, but I don't know. For me, this is a fantastic game. I love it. I could see maybe some gripes, but for me, I think you have to play this, and hopefully the new game keeps what this game does. Basically, it keeps the grid, from this game, and maybe improves and makes it a better game. I have faith in Capcom now after Resident Evil 7, but if you would ask me before Resident Evil 7 if I had faith in them with Capcom doing this game, I wouldn't. But after 7, I have my faith restored in the Resident Evil series, so I am ultimately excited for Resident Evil 2 coming out in January.
Very good.
And then with that being said, we'll go into our 3-word reviews here for this game of the month. So for the 3-word reviews, with Twitter, we ask that you use the hashtag CC3WR. And with that, I'm going to start with Raiho. He has weirdest precinct ever.
Nice.
Curtis Freisel wrote, needs no remake. Duke from Retro Nonsense wrote, Resident Evil Poo. So I guess he didn't enjoy the game. The Ramvox wrote, movie was better. So he was wrong.
Mm-hmm.
Which one? I don't know, because they're all terrible. Dean from Round 2 Gaming wrote, infectiously fun time. Chris R., the bass guy, wrote, not enough bullets. And Buried on Mars wrote, best on PC.
That's not shocking at all.
No. Chris, what's your 3-word review?
Glorious B-movie horror fest.
Joe, I kind of stretched that one a little bit, but we'll accept it. Joe, what is your 3-word review?
Mine is true survival horror.
Musty, what's your 3-word review?
Rough at first.
And mine,
just being honest.
Sure. No, that's perfectly fine. Mine is survival horror classic. All right, with that being said, that's the show, everyone. I'm going to thank the panel here. So, Joe, thank you very much for being here. Where can we find you on the internet?
You can find me on Twitter at ACDecepticon, as well as Instagram at My Life in Collecting. I'm also on YouTube at My Life in Collecting, and I've got 2 podcasts you can listen to. You can find them on iTunes. One is under Transformers and Beer Podcast, and the other one is STC Pod.
Thank you for being here, Joe.
Thanks for having me.
Chris, where can we find you on the internet?
On Twitter, it's at OA Retro Gamer. On Instagram, I'm the Old Ass Retro Gamer, as well as on Facebook. And on YouTube, my channel is youtube.com/Schwanzi, or just do a search for the Old Ass Retro Gamer. I'm pretty sure I'm the only one there. And I have a podcast that I do. Both of you have been on it, both Ryan and Musty. It's called Shh, the movie is starting. Just do a search on iTunes for Shh, the movie is starting, and you'll definitely find it.
Thanks for being here, Chris.
No problem. Thanks for having me. This was a lot of fun.
You can find me on Twitter at ItsRocketSauce. And I'm occasionally on the weekly hangouts on Tuesday nights. So just, I would say, search YouTube for CC Hangouts or Cartridge Club Hangouts, and you can find me there. And Musty, where can we find you?
Yeah, so best spot would probably be Twitter at MustyHobbit, or you can check out the YouTube channel Second Breakfast, which is youtube.com/secondbreakfastyt YouTube. And aside from this podcast, and again, the Hangouts as well are some of the more common locations. I'm also trying to be on the Discord a little more frequently and the forums. So make sure to check both those out. Links to those, you should be able to access both of those if you go to the website, cartridgeclub.org. But yeah, let's kind of tie a bow on all this. Thank you again for joining us for October's Game of the Month. Again, we are looking forward to next month's game, which is a first for us, and that is playing a game that was just released the week prior. And so for November, we are playing Red Dead Redemption 2, which is available on all of your major platforms there, minus the Switch. Sorry, Switch people. It's okay.
It would melt.
You'll get yours. Yeah, it totally would melt.
Hey, I don't think it's on PC either, so sorry, PC fans.
Oh, sorry. Well,
Bear down March. Oh!
It's all right. He won't buy it till it's $10 anyways, so don't sweat it. But we just recently announced an exclusive on the in the Q-Dog House at PRGE, but I will say it here that we are playing DuckTales for the NES on December's Game of the Month. And so looking forward to having people join us for that. In addition to all of this, I did want to just mention that the club does have a Patreon there where club members can help contribute to kind of keep the club running and help cover costs and things like that. As a perk for those people at the $5 or greater per month do get to view these recordings live. So they can join us and chat as we're going through this. And then those at the $3 or more will get the edited video version of the podcast as well. Of course, you can always find this on any podcast app or a location that you may prefer, and those will always remain free as well. So again, we would like to thank you all for taking the time out to listen to us talk about Resident Evil 2. We hope that you do give the game a shot if you have not already. But yeah, we're going to call it. Thank you again, and CC Unite.